Board now, back with you. On this video I will be talking about episode 3 of season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The episode is called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Full spoilers from the start of this review. This is a Singh focused episode. I can never remember a full name, but the relative of the famous Star Trek villain. Because of that, it feels very nostalgic, and that they're really tapping into that kind of like origin, but also the origin when it relates to Kirk being Khan Singh's energy in the original franchise. So that's definitely a big thing. And it also has vibes of the voyage home, because most of the episode is set on Earth, in Canada in particular. And that's probably one of the best jokes in the episode, because like this version of Kirk gets Canada confused with New York, which I just find to be really funny. But for the episode is that Singh is like transported to another timeline. She shows up on the ship, but it's a ship with Kirk as the captain, not Pike. So everyone else is the same, but it's Kirk in the seat, not Pike. And that's kind of the cut to the credits moment. So it's a nice little reveal. It's a good hook. And she gets set on this mission with that version of Kirk. They're sent to past Canada. So eventually it's revealed that they're there to stop future terrorism, like this group who are planning to use like advanced technology ultimately for terrorism. And that includes taking out Khan, as in the original Star Trek Khan, before he grows up to become a villain. That's ultimately what it boils down to. So she's there, she and Kirk are there to kind of stop that group from using that kind of technology. So it's actually like a pretty smart time travel type concept, where it's revealed at the very end of the episode that she was recruited for this one-off mission, almost by I guess like time travel style police, like law enforcement. So that's a fun thing to dip into. But I'd be interested what people think of this episode, because I could see some people being a bit mixed on it. Overall, I liked it quite a bit. I think because I like Singh, and at this point we've had enough of her character to like really care about her and be into like a character-driven episode. But it's not as good as last week's. I think last week's was the best of the season so far, and definitely up there for one of the best of this show so far. But this was pretty impressive. I did like the character dynamics between her and like this version of Kirk, and it runs the risk of being like a bit too like nostalgia filled, and a bit like just using like these characters for the sake of nostalgia and just playing with things. But because they flip around the dynamics and they make it into quite a fun episode, then I don't mind. I think it works well as a one-off style episode, and like they have chemistry, the two of them. They work well together. There's a complaint that maybe Kirk doesn't really feel like Kirk, and they probably get away with it because it's meant to be like in an alternative timeline. But yeah, he doesn't really feel like Kirk, because Kirk was never like the outsider or the underdog. He was never really goofy Kirk, and that's what we see in this episode. But because it's a one-off, I don't mind too much. It sort of serves the purpose, and there is some good comedy, like with the car, him struggling to figure out how to like drive a car, and some of the pratfalls that come from that. Also, just like the hot dog gag, I think is funny. Like that's a good gag. So they play off each other well, with her being like the more serious one, down to business. I also quite like the touch of him saying he's never experienced Earth before, and that's partly the reason why he gets like Toronto mixed up with New York, and why he's so he's so caught up in the wonder of everything. He's like a kid in the candy store. Whereas she has experienced certain versions of Earth. She's been to Earth before, so she has a bit more knowledge. And again, I feel like that's doing the subversion, because it's like saying, this version of the Singh family actually has more Earth experience than Kirk, which is pretty funny to think about. But they definitely gel off each other quite nicely. Once you get into the plot, I do enjoy it. Because although there's a lot of comedy, I think it also has a good sort of detective style feel with them trying to figure this out, and like the conspiracy theory stuff that we get in the middle of the episode with this character who's introduced, who helps them out of a jam, because like when they crash the car, like the police or some sort of local detectives are like all over them and are like arresting them, and you get this character who just has like starts filming them and says, hey, this is going on the internet. It's one of those TV things, because in reality, although they might not want to look bad, that they probably wouldn't back down if they were that serious, but they do for the sake of the plot, so that's fine. So she sort of befriends them, and it turns out she is almost like an X-Files style conspiracy theorist, and is starting to put this stuff in their head about what the government are up to and how they're using certain technology and how they're keeping like the rest of society aloof and out of it. So you get some good scenes. Once again, a bit like the character last week, like the guest star character, the one who played the lawyer. This is a really good character. I like this character a lot. I think the actress is good. She's quite quirky, but she plays quite a believable, like, paranoid, like, conspiracy theorist. Now, it's a little bit obvious, like, because she disappears at some point after she's, like, helped them out, and there's a little bit of a report. It turns out that, like, Singh is more cynical of her. Like, she doesn't really buy into what she's saying. She sort of pays her lip service, but then when she walks away, she's like, yeah, do you really believe that stuff, Kirk? Whereas Kirk believes it a lot more. So again, I feel that they're really running with the reverse of the roles here and playing with it, but again, it feels quite Mulder and Scully, but it's just that Singh is like the more practical style one. But it did feel a bit predictable than that character. It's not the last we've seen of her. I wasn't saying she was going to be the villain of the episode, but that turns out to be what happened. She is the villain of the episode because she's laying in wait for them later on. And she's there to kill off Khan, as I said, the original Khan, the one who grows up to be a villain. He's behind the door. I thought that bit was a little bit, like, cliched or a bit, like, pushing buttons, but it leads to a pretty tense end of the episode and a good decision that Singh has to make. And we also get the Carol Kane character, which is a lot of fun because they visit her because they need help figuring out the technology, and of course she lived on Earth for years and years, so Singh knew where she was going to be. So it's a good use of her. Once again, she's entertaining. I'm enjoying her character. She just fits well into the Star Trek universe. And yeah, we get a pretty dark end to the episode, the way things play out, because this guest star ends up killing Kirk in the kerfuffle, and it's one of those things where it almost doesn't count because Kirk isn't a regular on the show, and it's also in this timeline, so you could almost argue then it could be changed later anyway. But yeah, he ends up being killed, which I didn't expect, and that becomes the consequence almost, where Singh saves the day and you know, does what she's sent to do, but a consequence is that she loses Kirk and Kirk ends up dead. And I do like the way they play with her and Kirk, and how her ancestor was like a rival of Kirk, but she has a very different relationship to him. So I think they do some good stuff with that in the episode. And overall, it's for me a satisfying episode. So that's Star Trek Strange New Worlds for the week. Let me know what you think of this episode. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. You can support the channel on patreon.com/boardnow for some extra perks, just $1 a month for that. But thanks for listening. Let me know what you think of the episode. See you again soon, guys.